Up for Harry and Meghan to take their vows. People still have so many questions about what to expect. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to answer some of those questions for you right now, live on our CBC News Facebook page, YouTube, and Twitter. We've got CBC's Thomas Daigle and Camila Tominey. She's royal editor for the Sunday Express. They are standing by live for you. They're at the center of all the action in Windsor. So you know what? Log on and ask away. And I'll start it off because if you're shy, I'm not, and I can begin the questions. Thomas, Camila, we know there are more than like 5,000 members of various media there for this royal wedding. Camila, what does that tell you about the interest around the world?
Well, I think they were suggested that it wasn't going to be as big as the royal wedding in 2011, but I think we're seeing on the streets now unprecedented scenes, to be honest. I've never seen Windsor like it. There are thousands here, as you say, accredited from media organisations around the world. Loads of well-wishers in the street. From Monday night, I spotted a few hardcore royal watchers camping outside the castle for the best spot in town to see the carriage procession and the bride and groom in the flesh. They're sleeping out in sleeping bags, would you believe? Complete madness, and they've been here for a week already. So I think you'd say that it's definitely scenes of excitement down on the streets of Windsor.
It's like a day with the changing of the guard, but the excitement times about 100.
Maybe times 1,000.
And it's only Thursday.
Exactly.
You know what? We do have a question coming in online. This comes from Xenia Liu. And Thomas, she wants to know, where is Meghan's father right now? Do you know?
Where is Meghan's father? We got that, of course, that statement from Kensington Palace on behalf of Meghan. The first time we heard directly from her in some way, saying that she was sad that her father wasn't going to be able to make it. But as far as we know, he's in Mexico. Yeah,
we think he's recovering from his surgery. He's had a heart stent fitted. Doctors have told him, I think, that he needs to remain in hospital for a couple more days and that he should avoid any excitement. So I think that probably explains why he's not here on Saturday.
I also have a question. You know, I'm actually heading to a wedding this weekend, completely unrelated, but a very, very pompous affair. I'm kidding. I want to know if the bride or the groom will say anything, because the wedding that I'm going to is going to be lots of chatter. In this case, at a royal wedding, given that it might be a little bit less stiff, if you will, than Will and Catherine's, are you expecting either comments from Prince Harry or from Meghan Markle?
Absolutely from Prince Harry. That's guaranteed, because in British weddings you always hear from the groom, paying a loving tribute to his new wife. But equally, I think we might hear from Meghan. There had been some rumblings that she wanted to break with tradition and say a few words on her big day. And frankly, who can blame her? It's 2018. I'm all for wives speaking at weddings. I don't know what you think, Thomas, but I think it's a thoroughly modern relationship and she's a thoroughly modern woman. So she should be able to have her two pennies worth.
Not only that, but someone who's used to speaking in public, being in front of the cameras, and even giving speeches on behalf of the UN on women's issues. So, you know, she'll be very comfortable up there, even on this big day.
Exactly. Thomas, we have Sheila Dimitruk, who asks, where do you think the kiss will happen?
Oh, where will the kiss happen? The West Steps? Should we expect that, do you think?
I think on the steps of the chapel is where traditionally kisses happen when there are royal weddings. I remember covering Peter Phillips, he's the Queen's oldest grandson, marrying Autumn Kelly, who I believe is a Canadian, and they had their first kiss there. But equally, the couple are very tactile. They quite like PDAs, public displays of affection, so there might be more kissing in the carriage. Can you imagine?
Some will remember a few years ago the religious ceremony after the civil wedding of Charles and Camilla. We saw no kiss then.
No, but they're a bit older and of their generation. And I just think Harry and Meghan, if the engagement interview was anything to go by, which I thought they kind of were withholding from each other, they looked like they wanted to well, kiss and cuddle even during that. They looked besotted and in love. So I'm thinking while they're together on a momentous day with the crowds watching and cheering, they might not be able to resist a little snuggle up in the carriage. We'll have to wait and see.
And you know what? I think there'll be tons of people watching for that and probably just melting their hearts. I want to also ask a question for Diliana Payson. We're getting tons of questions, by the way, from our viewers, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. I'm so glad you're taking part in this. Are Meghan and Harry apart from each other until the big day? And if so, where are they staying? So this comes from Diliana Payson. Do either of you know?
Yes.
where they're staying. Yeah,
Yes.
they're both staying in separate hotels, right? 25 kilometers apart on either side of,
Yes.
Of Windsor. What do you know about those hotels?
Okay, so the Coworth Park Hotel is very closely associated with the Polo. That's where William and Harry are staying, and that's probably no surprise because they do like a chukker or two. And then Meghan and her mum are staying at the Clifton House Hotel. Now this has got quite an illustrious history because it was at the centre of the Profumo affair, which is a big scandal that rocked Britain in the 1960s. So it's quite an interesting venue to choose. Very luxury. We're talking 5-star spas, fluffy towels, crisp white sheets. So that'll be a lovely way to spend the last night as a single girl for Meghan.
That's Friday night, of course, tomorrow, but now we saw them earlier today,
Yes.
right along the Long Walk here in Windsor, not too far from where we're standing. They may be meeting the Queen for all we know. The Royal Standard is flying above Windsor Castle, which means the Queen is in residence.
And here's one that's complete speculation, okay? I want to get that out there, but it does come up from a viewer. Let me just go back to it. Vardit, I want to get the name right. Feldman. Vardit Feldman asks, and Camilla, this speaks to your snuggling point. A baby about a year later?
A baby about a year later. Well, I can tell you this, Suhana. Prince Harry has made no secret of the fact he'd like to start a family. In fact, I once interviewed him some years ago where he was talking about having children. And I said, I think you probably need to be married first, sir. And he agreed with that premise. And look, Meghan's 36, 37 in August, I believe. So I guess, you know, they want to hurry up. So I wouldn't be surprised if I hear the pitter-patter of tiny royal feet soon. But let's let them get married first. This is what we're like, aren't we? We're like, when they get engaged, when are you getting married? When they get married, when are you having a child? They'll have their first child and we'll be asking when they're having their second.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you both. I want to thank you, CBC's Thomas Daigle and Camila Tominey from the Sunday Express. Now, we are going to say goodbye to you right here on CBC News Network, but I have to tell you, this Q&A continues on our social media channels. So you can join in on our CBC News Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and on Twitter. And I hope you do, because this is a chance for you to pick a couple of really great brains on this wedding. The Canadian family behind the West Edmonton Mall has another huge project in the works. Today, the city of Miami is holding a final vote on a proposal that would create the biggest mall in America, because America really needs another mall. Scott Peterson is tracking the story. What do you know about this project, Scott?
Wait till I tell you about this mall in particular, because you're going to say, well, finally, America's getting the mall it deserves. And this is a Canadian mega mall, appropriately named the American Dream. It's by 555, and that's the Canadian family behind the West Edmonton Mall. But take a look at this.
Usually a bride will have someone by their side to walk them down the aisle. And then equally, Prince Charles has been touted as a possibility, and also Prince William. I know he's best man, but he's also probably the royal that knows Meghan the best, because he's lived a few doors down from her since she's lived at Nottingham Cottage at Kensington Palace. So it could be a royal, but I think my money would be on Doria.
I want to ask you personally, because I've been wondering about this. For people watching, you might not know that Camilla was the one to break the story, if you will, that Harry and Meghan were dating. Now, this was back in October 2016 that you broke that story. Back then, what your sources were telling you, did you have an inkling that a year and a half later we'd be here for a wedding?
Well, obviously, when you kind of find out about a new girlfriend, you think, well, this could be the one, because neither Harry or indeed Meghan are getting any younger. What was interesting about that story is it's kind of a one-fact story of finding out her name, and then normally you Google a name and you don't find out much. And I Googled her name because I hadn't watched Suits and I hadn't really heard of her, and suddenly all this imagery came off of this very, very glamorous, photogenic woman with clearly a lot to say and a massive backstory, not just as an actress, but also with the UN thing and all of her charitable endeavours. So, no, of course, I didn't know that they would get married then, but it seemed to me when I first broke the story that it was pretty serious pretty early on, and then we got a good indication of that in the engagement interview when they said that they'd had a few dates and then they went to Botswana together and had a holiday. So Harry said it's love at first sight, so it's proved to be.
Questions pouring in online. Thank you for those. Carl Eves asking, will Queen Elizabeth be there? I think it's quite likely.
Oh yeah, Carl, she'll be there with bells on, wearing a bright outfit and a hat.
Nicole Kifiak asks a question I don't think we can answer for sure. Who's designing the dress?
Well, interesting. We've seen Doria, the mother of the bride, with a Burberry suit cover, so maybe she's doing Burberry. I think that Burberry might have been in the frame, and Christopher Bailey, the creative director left recently, and maybe there was too much of a crossover. All the money's on Ralph and Russo. That's a British-based Australian duo that made Meghan's very elaborate sheer engagement dress. I think that was worth like nearly $100,000 Canadian. They might be doing the dress because Prince Harry's been spotted at their HQ. I did a story last week that rolls of silk had been spotted at the Queen's fabric supplier, labelled to go to Ralph and Russo. Who knows? We'll only know when the big reveal happens behind us on Saturday at around 12 noon.
Of course, for Diana, I'm sure for other royal brides, there have been hints that have been left that were sort of fake hints. I mean, might that be possible this time?
Well, sometimes, yeah, they try and subvert the press away. It's a funny one because journalistically you want to find out who's making the dress in advance, although as a woman and someone who's been married, I kind of think we should keep it secret anyway. And we will see Meghan come from the hotel in her car to the castle, but that will be through the window of the state car and won't be able to see it easily. So an actual announcement, it will drop, the designer's name will drop as soon as she steps out of the car to make her way into the chapel. So you are going to have to wait until just before the service starts.
A viewer is asking on Twitter whether Meghan will be wearing white given that she is a divorcee, but there's a whole royal angle to that, whether or not she will be wearing white or off-white or any other color.
Well, to be fair, the Church of England accepts divorcees marrying. The Archbishop of Canterbury gave his consent for Prince Harry to marry in the chapel, with him officiating over the vows. The reason why Charles and Camilla couldn't have that is because there is a rule that suggests that if there's any idea of adultery, then it's not appropriate for the Church of England to officiate over a second marriage. That's why Charles and Camilla got married at the Guildhall and then had a blessing later. In Meghan's case, she can wear white, she can wear ivory. Those rolls of silk I was referring to earlier, out of interest, are ivory Duchess satin, silk satin. So I think we could expect white. I wouldn't imagine she'll be sashaying down the aisle in black, put it that way.
Kate Donnelly asks an interesting question about the press here and how people in Britain feel about this. The way Kate phrases this is, are people really as upset as the papers make out? And of course, I'm standing next to someone who does work at a paper, so I got to watch my words here. But are people as upset as it's been reported with Harry marrying an American and with her father unable to attend as it's painted to be? So I'm not sure exactly what paper we're talking about, but what's your feeling about?
Well, I think
Meghan?
there's been legitimate coverage of the Thomas Markle's kind of will he, won't he attendance at the wedding, because that's newsworthy. Plus, it's been fueled by Thomas Markle and his other children speaking to the press about it. So we've had to report that as accurately as we can, you know, in the absence of a bit of guidance from the palace, to be perfectly honest. But we've got there in the end, and the narrative's changed now because he's not coming, and indeed we've had more and more announcements. As we build up to the big day, of course it will be mentioned, but I think it's going to be overshadowed by the dress, the bridesmaids, the venue and all the rest of it, the carriage ride. On the issue of us being upset that he's marrying an American, I don't think we are, actually. I think we're quite grateful to the Americans because they've always championed our British royal family. They've always come here as tourists in their droves. Places like Windsor, they capitalise on the royal connection that the place has had for more than 1,000 years. So I think, you know, like with Grace Kelly, it's just quite nice that an American has got now a player in the race, and they've got a connection. It's good for the so-called special relationship. Anglo-American ties being really important in this post-Brexit era.
To continue on that point of Meghan's father, Thomas, what's your read on the way the palace has handled this? We saw a statement Monday saying that this was something like a deeply personal moment for Meghan, and then today this statement saying that on her behalf, in her words apparently, that she is feeling sad about all this and always has cared for her father. Have they sort of been playing catch up with TMZ?
I think it's difficult because if you chase a story and you fuel it, it then becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. We did have a bit of a news vacuum with not getting that much guidance, so people like me are kind of calling the palace going, what's going on? And nothing's forthcoming. I think the whole situation is difficult because Mr. Markle's a private individual and a grown man who can make his own choices. Clearly there's a little bit of complexity to the Markle side of the family and their relationships. You know, Meghan hasn't seen a lot of that side of the family since her parents divorced when she was 6. I think it's been difficult for a man like Thomas Markle, who was living in complete obscurity until recent months, where he's been splashed on the front page of every newspaper. I mean, it's, in a way, you could say that the palace might have been quicker to kind of like close the situation down, but I also have sympathy with the situation that is rather out of their control. Not just here, but geographically. You know, what's going on in Mexico and him colluding or not with paparazzi is a difficult thing to manage when you're also in the middle of wedding planning.
Shamir Patel asks, will they be wearing morning dress? And I think it's unlikely, especially Harry, given that, you know, he has that personal connection and has spoken so highly of the military for many years now.
Yes.
What's your read on that?
I think he'll be in military uniform. I think he'll be in his Blues and Royals uniform. And I think William will be in a uniform that matches so that there's some continuity of dress. Having said that, I think the ushers can be wearing morning suit. And my understanding from the invitation is that men were instructed to wear morning suits or suits themselves, and then women day dresses and hats.
Chris Eames asks, who is paying for this wedding?
Good question. That is a good question. So the actual wedding, like the food and the drink and the entertainment, is all being covered by the royal family. The bigger bill here, though, is of course security. So we're expecting a ring of steel around Windsor. Starting now, there's a lot of police around anyway, a big police presence, and that does cost money. The Royals don't ever, or the Home Office, which runs royal security, never disclose costs, but you're talking about very many million. In fact, I think I did a story saying the combined local policing effort is about £40 million. Yes. What's that in Canadian?
It's upwards of nearly 60 million Canadian dollars. Just from my reporting, speaking with the police commander in charge this week, they're not saying how many officers are going to be here. Clearly, that's not public information. What's been reported is upwards of 5,000 perhaps in the streets, police on horseback, armed and unarmed, on rooftops, and there's going to be so many officers that we won't see. You know, so much of this operation is designed for us to not notice.
It's actually the kind of like anti-American style. So, you know, if you think about presidents and people talking into cuffs and motorcades and big presents, it's the complete opposite with the Royals. It's invisible policing, it's snipers on the roof, because actually we don't want security to get in the way of the Royals and the public. If people have come here and camped out, like the guys behind me who have been here since Monday, they don't want to have burly bodyguards in front of them. And indeed the Queen, you know, she wants a soft security presence around her, because that's the magic of the day. The magic of being able to come here and see the Royals at such a touching distance is what they always want to preserve at major royal occasions.
I know you have time for one last question, Camilla, so I will make it the best one yet. A YouTube viewer asks, is Harry going to shave at least?
Now this is a good question as well, because, you know, the Queen doesn't like beards. And I once did a job with Prince Philip and the Queen, and Prince Philip said to this guy who was about to meet the monarch, "Didn't you think you should shave this morning? You're meeting the Queen." It was actually meant to be funny, and he always does that kind of thing to put people at ease. And this guy really laughed. So the Queen is not a beard woman. In fact, Prince Philip had a beard when he came out of the Royal Navy after the Second World War, and she just said, "You need to shave this off." But I think he likes being bearded, so I wouldn't imagine he's shaving. He was bearded in the car today, right?
Yes, he was.
So I think the beard's here. It's a bearded wedding.
Harry always does a little differently.
Yes.
So here we are, the bearded wedding of 2018. We'll be watching for it. Camila Tominey of the Sunday Express, thanks so much. It's a real pleasure talking to you, and I know you've got other commitments. She's running around all week, so we'll catch up with you maybe later. Thanks again, Camila. And we will continue taking a couple questions, but what we're going to do in the next little while here on Facebook and YouTube, wherever you're watching, is we're going to try to give you a sense of the craziness here right in the center of Windsor. To give you a sense where we are, this street is called Peascod Street. It's just in the shadow of the Queen Victoria statue that we'll give you a look at in just a moment. But my cameraman Pascal is just gonna grab his camera and we're gonna go for a walk. It's a very, very busy town on any day in terms of the changing of the guard, any royal event there is here, full of tourists on any given weekend especially. But right now, I mean, this is unreal. Just to give you a sense of and Pascal can give you a look at not only the media presence, but the tourists, the sheer interest. And keep in mind, we are still almost 48 hours away now from the event itself. People, I think, coming for a look at what there was a rehearsal today. Perhaps a look at that. Perhaps a look at simply at the castle and just getting a sense of the excitement. There is Windsor Castle itself. It is Queen's favorite residence. She spends a lot of her time here, and the wind's not blowing actually the royal standard. but we know that it is. Okay, do you hear me now, Pascal?
Yeah.
Okay, great, we're back. The royal flag that the Queen is in residence behind those walls today. I see a Canadian flag, so let's walk toward the Canadian flag. I've spotted some Canadians. They're all in the crowd. They're always here. They're easy to spot because they always carry maple leaf. But just to talk about this and the media presence here, as you can imagine, we have come. We have a crew over from Canada. Adrian Arsenault is going to be broadcasting part of the National tonight, and Heather Hiscox as well, again tomorrow morning on Morning Live on CBC News Network. But there have been media from around the world who've descended upon the town of, 32,000 people. On Saturday, the population here is expected to more than triple. 5,000 media personnel have been accredited. That's how busy it's going to be. That's how many cameras are going to be pointed toward this historic castle. Within it is St. George's Chapel, where Harry and Meghan will tie the knot. I see that Canadian flag just across the street. Let's wait for the traffic to go by. As of midnight tonight, there are going to be restrictions here. This whole street, this whole area around High Street is going to be shut down to traffic. So these are really among the last people being able to drive in. You see all those souvenirs at the shops. I mean, the shop owners here have ordered everything they can. You got shirt, but the list goes on and on. I don't see any Harry and Meghan mugs. Of course, you got the Union Jack, keep calm and carry on any day. But we'll maybe have a look at some of that Harry and Meghan stuff a little later. Are you Canadian?
I am, yeah.
So, what part of here? What are you doing?
I'm camping.
You're camping.
It's another camping trip,
What drew you in? Are you a big fan?
I am a big fan, and I'm also a big fan of Meghan's before they even met. And I was in the final episode of Suits with her.
You were? How did that happen?
Actress. I liked the show so much, when I found out it was filmed in Toronto, I thought, I should try to be an extra on the show. So I was, and just by fluke, I was in the final episode, the final scene ever.
What a great story!
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, what do you hope to witness here? I mean, obviously, you say you're camping out. Are you camping out till Saturday?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I came here yesterday. I rode a bicycle from London.
No, you did.
I did. I'll show you a picture.
How long did that take?
4 hours. It should have taken 2, but the streets here aren't very straight. So you think you're going north 1 second, then you're going southeast, and
yeah, it's a little different when you compare to the grid system in a city like
Right.
like Toronto. But what is it about Meghan that you love so much?
I really love all the humanitarian work that she does, and she's just like such a pleasant soul to be around, and who wouldn't love that?
What's your name?
Ivanka.
Ivanka, I'm Thomas.
Pleased to meet you.
I'm glad we ran into you. You're live on CBC News on our social media platforms.
Hi, Dad.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the camping. Maybe we'll catch up with you again in the next couple of days. Okay. There we go. We got her card. Ivanka, thank you so much. Good to talk to you. Enjoy the camping. Biggest royal fans are camped out in the couple of days leading up to the wedding. Some of these people, honestly, I've seen them at every royal event, whether it's the Queen's 90th birthday celebrations 2 years ago here in Windsor, or the birth of Prince Louis just a couple weeks ago. Let's keep walking this way. This is the hill just adjacent to Windsor Castle. Hello, how's it going? It must be hard in the sun. I mean, it must be a little warm these days. How are you keeping up?
Florida, where I've enjoyed the hot weather from America. Beautiful.
Enjoy, thank you. Royal fans have really descended here and started camping out for a couple days now. Seeing, and we might be able to show you, if I can, not only the Union Jack, which we always see at these big royal events, but a lot of star-spangled banners, the red, white, and blue, the American flag, star-spangled banner being the anthem. What drew you in? Why did you want to get dressed up and come? Okay, so audio. I'm going to keep. Do you hear me now? Okay. We got audio back. I was just asking you what to camp out across from the Capitol?
Well, I've been a big Diana fan for years, and so it's just carried on with Will and Harry.
So maybe, as you can imagine, there are so many media outlets and broadcasters.
That's right, camera mic.
Going on camera mic. Okay. So how do you hope? I mean, I know you're a big fan of Diana. How do you hope her memory is reflected here?
Yeah, she'll be really pleased. I mean, both sons have done everything to include her in their weddings, and I think Meghan is just the perfect match for Harry. They seem to be very compatible, and I think they'll do a lot of good for the monarchy.
Where did you come from?
San Francisco. Area.
All the way from San Francisco. That's a long trip. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's perhaps go back toward where we were earlier, away from the other media, because we're getting interference in our microphone. That's how many media outlets there are here. To give you a sense of the security operation, now we were talking about that with Camila a little earlier, but as so many people crowd into the streets of Windsor, they're expecting upwards of 100,000 come Saturday. I'm sorry, I keep tripping over people here. That's how crowded it is, and it's only Thursday.
Not entirely.
It is the biggest security operation that the Thames Valley Police, the local police force here, that they've ever dealt with. That's what the commander of the local police, the man who is going to be in charge of the police operation Saturday, that's what he was telling me in an interview. Hello. I'm not sure the microphone is picking this up, but Windsor, and especially Windsor Castle here, happens to be in the flight path. Windsor here happens to be the flight path of many airplanes from Heathrow Airport, which is just a few kilometers away. So if at any point my voice is drowned out by the plane traffic overhead, the air traffic, you'll know why. Let's cross the street. We've got a green light here briefly. Every shop decked out, Harry and Meghan in the Union Jack and the American flag. You can see it here. This shop, both flags, Harry and Meghan, the date right there. Every shop, every person in town along this high street they all make money off. They live off tourists, essentially, trying to make a few bucks off the big day on Saturday, as you can imagine. Let's whip around here. I'm gonna make my cameraman's head spin here by making him whip around again and again. Let's just go look at this other shop. It's called Glorious Britain. Now this shop is just across the street, literally, from Windsor Castle. They not only have Harry and William bobbleheads over here to your left. They have a Queen bobblehead, and here they are, the bobbleheads. There's William and Harry, and if I'm not mistaken, Pascal, you can remember that. If I'm not mistaken, that's what they were wearing the day of William's wedding, I think, in military dress, if memory serves me right. And there's, of course, their grandmother, and you've got Harry and Meghan. What are those? Shortbread cookies, and you've got Harry and Meghan. I guess there's a gin and tonic mix, some Harry and Meghan biscuits, everything you can imagine, cups with the name and date on them. Everybody clearly trying to make a buck off this big day with 100,000 people descending upon Windsor. Just to give you a sense of the coverage that we're going to be offering over the next few days. We are live, of course, with CBC News Network in the morning with Heather Hiscox tomorrow. Then the National tonight and tomorrow, live here with Adrian Arsenault from Windsor. And then come Saturday, we'll be up bright and early. We hope you will too, starting at 4 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time. That is when our special program hosted by Adrian Arsenault right here from Windsor will be on the air. I will be not too far from here on the Long Walk, where upwards of 75,000 people will be crowding in to watch the ceremony on big screens, but also watch that procession. And if I can leave you on one last thought here, just on this procession route, if Pascal, we can just come around here, just to give you a sense that once the ceremony has wrapped up at 1 o'clock local time, that's 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time, Saturday morning. Harry and Meghan are going to leave St. George's Chapel. They're going to drive that way. They're going to come up the long walk down the road here. They're going to be in an open-top carriage, and in that final route, they're going to, this is the final stretch, they're going to come up this street, go into Windsor Castle, and they are going to go into St. George's Hall, unless I'm mistaken. I am sorry, I am mistaken. They are going to be on the long walk over there, but they're not going to be returning over here. They're going to be returning straight up there. In any case, people along this street, High Street here in Windsor, just adjacent to Windsor Castle, they will have a phenomenal view of the married couple in that open top carriage that we will, of course, have for you. We'll bring you the live pictures on all our CBC News platforms online and on television. I think we're going to wrap up. I'm going to thank you for joining us on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, wherever you've been watching. I'm Thomas Daigle. You can follow me online and follow us in the coming days as our coverage continues here from Windsor. See you later.
See you, John.